presented by Cody Blankenship from Mary Washington Hospital Center. And one of the key things I took away from his presentation was this idea of principal components analysis. I'd never seen this kind of graph before, but essentially he did a correlation analysis between all these different kinds of metrics so that he would know which metrics to expect to move when he saw improvement in one area or another. I also saw Maziar, his presentation. He's at University of Akron. And one of the things that he identified in his was that patient visiting hours in this particular unit, that correlated with when patients fell. So when visiting hours ended and we didn't have family members and visitors there, they noticed that there were more falls at that time. And I thought that was a cool thing. I hadn't really thought about that being a correlation. I also went to Jared's presentation, and he did a project in China. And I learned that patients pay after every encounter with a physician. So in the US, we pay at the end, but in China, after you get triaged, you gotta go pay. Then you need to go see another physician, to get treated, then you gotta go pay. And so that was really interesting to me. And also, patients transport themselves. So when you're in healthcare in the US, you get taken between departments on a stretcher or a wheelchair. But in China, you have a broken foot, you're gonna be, hobbling your way over to the next thing where you need to go because there's no patient transport. And then the final thing that I thought was really interesting was all patients that go to the emergency department, they receive an IV at the end of their visit, no matter what they came for. So I thought that was interesting too. I also saw Johanna's presentation. She's from the Mayo Clinic, and I loved this quote that I captured from her. She said that I attended this conference as a student 4 years ago, and I got my first job through this conference. So she made a plug for networking during the conference, and she had presented a really impressive presentation that saved $2.9 million in 1 year, mostly through device standardization, which is really difficult to do in healthcare, so it was very impressive work that she had done. I saw Bianca and Monica and Freddie present from Emory Healthcare, and I took away several things from their presentation. I liked, they said fail fast and learn quickly, and they said they'd done a lot of that in the past year, so I thought that was great that they weren't afraid of failure and used it to identify how to improve. I also liked the saying that they had was eat the elephant one bite at a time, so the concept of just breaking things down and doing one small part at a time, and eventually it adds up. I also liked something they said sometimes you have to make them eat their veggies, and what they were talking about was pushing lean concepts. So just like with kids, when you have to force them to eat their veggies, sometimes we have to force people to take on lean. And then they also talked about using lean coffee at work. So lean coffee is a concept that many of you might have heard of, where small groups get together at coffee shops and use a Kanban style discussion methodology, and they actually use it at their work to discuss topics that came up in their huddles. I loved the keynote yesterday, Norman from Porsche. I hope all of you were able to attend that. There was way too many things for me to document here of what I took away from his presentation. But one thing I really loved was when he said the word kiki in Japanese, that it means either crisis or opportunity. And I actually looked it up last night, and they had the Japanese characters for it, so it really was true. And I just loved the idea of that and that they live by that. I really liked the inventory on hand things that he talked about with the goals, and how Porsche's only at 0.8 days was really impressive. And I really liked his quote that he said, "At Porsche, we have no competitors, only admirers." I really liked that too. And then he pointed out that there was 2 components to every project that they had. He had said that there was a process improvement component, which we often focus on, but there's also that component of change and culture that has to change that we need to make sure we have as well. Theresa's presentation from Michigan Tech, one thing I loved in hers was she said, "Brilliant things happen in calm minds." I just loved that quote and the concept of keeping calm and the importance of mental state and how you can produce so much more. I had never heard the concept of Industry 4.0 before, and she referred to it as the 4th Industrial Revolution, and so that was something new for me. And she also talked about prioritizing improvement requests based on how they aligned with their overall strategy. And I thought that was good because if you get a whole lot of improvement requests, you can't do all of them. That was one good approach. So David, some of the things that he said was, he started his presentation with this concept that no matter whether you're a gazelle or a lion, you better wake up in the morning running. And his idea was that, the lion's going to catch the slowest gazelle, and the gazelle wakes up every morning thinking they have to outrun the lion. So just the concept of keeping on top of things. And he also presented that at Chick-fil-A they had started out trying to have IEs do all the process improvement. And that was just too slow. It really wasn't scalable there, and it was really costly. And so what they've done is they've taught their team all of these techniques and empowered the team to actually make the improvements, which has spread the improvements so much further. He also introduced this concept of a sandbox, which he was using it in terms of setting guardrails on what folks at the front line could improve and not improve. And so as an example, one of the guardrails or things that was outside the sandbox was food safety. They don't want you experimenting on anything that might cause all of us to get sick when we eat it. So I liked that idea of here's your sandbox to play in. And he built this sharing community on Facebook, which is free, where all of their restaurants can share ideas across the restaurants on Facebook, and so it spread things faster. And then, of course, we all heard Lukasz yesterday at lunch, and I got a lot of things out of his talk as well. One of the things that was concerning to me was that he said he has more anxiety sending his kids to the hospital for a minor procedure than he does putting them on a plane. And working in healthcare, that's really concerning and sad that he would have that concern, but it's kind of a wake-up call. He also talked about the importance of the culture of reporting, and he gave us the example from Delta Airlines with reporting near misses and mistakes. He also talked about the cost of stopping the line at Toyota being $13,000 a minute, but yet everyone can stop the line, and that they get concerned if people aren't stopping the line, so I really liked that perspective. And then he also showed a little status board that communicated the status of the radiation oncology machine so that they wouldn't get interrupted to find out the status. And I thought that was great because one thing I didn't highlight on the previous slide, I learned in this presentation from Perkins and Well that they cited a California study that found that every time that we get interrupted, it takes us 23 minutes and 15 seconds to get back to the task at hand and get our head back in the game. So this concept then, when I went to Lukasz's presentation and he had this concept of not being interrupted, those two things tied together. I always get something great out of Larry Aft, and so I particularly enjoyed yesterday when Doug McInvale presented that coin to Larry and his surprise. But one of the quotes that Doug had put on there that Larry said is, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And so just another motivation for change. I loved Doug McInvale's presentation yesterday. I hope all of you saw it as well. I loved the idea that he presented about saying thanks and recognizing people and how that can change culture just by saying thank you. And it's such a simple, easy thing to do. He highlighted those 4 important components for success and talked through those. And one of my favorite, probably my favorite part about his talk was when he said, align yourself with quality people and then figure out what you're going to do. Because if you're working with quality people, you can probably accomplish anything. So a great day again today, and a great conference overall, and just kudos to the conference committee because this has been an amazing conference, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to share my recap of the conference.